Hello everyone, welcome back to my 4-Star School YouTube channel, and in this lesson I'm going to talk about the text field in Flutter. So if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification so you won't miss out the latest Flutter tutorial. Also, I will cover all the attributes I list out here and give you a real code example so you have a better idea how to use those attributes when you actually deal with this text field. Okay, without further ado, let's get started. And first we back to our Visual Studio Code and open our Android emulator. Here I already connected with my emulator and I run this very basic Flutter application on my emulator. This is a very basic Flutter project. Here I only wrote this text widget inside this scaffold. So you will see I have a text in the center of our screen. We will start from this point. Here I'm going to delete this text widget and I will replace it by the text field widget. So when I save, you will see we have a very basic text field shown on our screen. Just this underline, and when I click this underline, you will see our cursor and also the keyboard will pop up. You may not able to see this cursor. Here I'm going to wrap this text field widget with the padding widget, and we're going to give 20 padding so you're able to see this cursor clearly. So when I click this text field, our cursor will start flicker. Let's back to today's agenda. There are two ways we can actually get the text we parsing into this text field, which is the user input. And the first approach is by creating this text editing controller and we passing it into this controller attribute. And another way is we creating a variable so we can receive the user input by this unchanged attribute. Back to Visual Studio Code, and in order to create this text editing controller, we're going to change this stateless widget into a stateful widget. So we're going to recreate this my home page. We're going to delete all of them, and we can create a stateful widget. And I just name it my home page. And I don't think I need this constructor for now, so I just delete it. And we need to remove this constant keyword. So inside this my home page state, and we need to declare our text editing controller. So we can specify our text editing controller using late keyword, and because we will initialize our controller inside our init method, so we're going to declare our controller final. I just call it text editing controller. Call it controller. So, and then we going to implement our init method, init state method. So inside our init state method, we're going to initialize our controller. I will make it private. So we're going to initialize this controller. It will be equal to text editing controller. Right. Also, we need to write down our disposed method, which to remove this text editing controller. We're going to remove our controller just by call this disposed method. Okay, so let's basic set up our text editing controller. Then inside our build method, we're going to return a scaffold widget. Inside scaffold, we have this body attribute, and we're going to write this center widget, and also our TextField widget. Okay, so I would probably give it some padding, so you can see it. I'm going to give it 20 padding as before. And inside this text field, actually you have this controller, right, attribute. So we just passed our controller, so we can get the user input. And in order to see the user input, here I'm going to create another page. So I just call it a second page, and it's set as the widget. I just call it second page, right? And here I'm going to create a field, call it title. No, I just call it user input, right? User input. So inside this constructor, I remove everything. Just need to this user input, and I will going to return a scaffold as well, and also implement this body attribute. Actually, I think I can just implement it is app bar, right? And because I will pass our text into this app bar, just pass this user input, right? So I'm going to, when I click the button, I'm going to navigate to our second page and also show our user input. Okay, so maybe I can still implement this body attribute and use the center widget. Inside, I use a text widget, right? Which is our user input. Okay, so I will under this text field, and I'm going to, so I create another button. Okay, so maybe I just create another floating action button. So floating action button. Inside this floating action button, I need to implement this on pressed, right, which is required. So when I press this button, and I'm going to navigate to the second page. So I use the navigator dot of context dot push, and I will use the material route, page route, material page route. So this builder, I receive the context, I return the second page. Okay, so and I pass this controller dot text. So you can access the user input by using this text attribute. So we save the code, and we're going to rebuild our application. I need to, probably I will give the app bar, and I'm using the default material app bar. So I save. So I'm going to type something in here. So I just type this text field demo, right? So when I click this button, and we are expect to see this text show on our second page, right? Because we pass this controller text to our second widget, the second page. So let's see, when I click this button, we will navigate to the second page. As where we expected, you see we grab this text, which is the TextField demo, from our first page, right, which is this home page. So we can access to the user input by using this controller. Let's go back to our home page, and we can also initialize this text just by setting our initial value inside this controller. So when we move your mouse in this like a text editing controller, you can pass the initial value into this controller. So here I'm going to pass the value is like initial value, right? So I'm going to save the code and I rerun. I need to click this restart because I want this whole application to rebuild again. Okay, you see our application is rebuilt and also show our initial value on this text field because we pass this controller to our text field widget, and also we assign this controller initial value, so you will show on our text field. So this is our first approach to get the user input. Next, I'm going to show you another way to get the user input, which is by implement this onChange method. So here I'm going to comment out this text controller. I'm going to comment out, so this one, and inside our state, my homepage state, I'm going to declare a variable, and I call it our str, string str, right? And I'm going to change its value. So, but we need to initialize before we actually use this value. We're going to initialize to an empty string, and we're going to implement the onChange method. So by default, onChange will pass a string. So I just call it like value. So we will actually get this value. The value actually comes from the user input. So we can assign this string to the user input. So and then we print out this string. So I'm going to pass the string here, right? So I think basically will achieve the same result. Right, so I save the code. I need to restart. Okay, I'm going to type something. I just type this is onChanged method. Right. So when I click the go to second page, when I click this button, I will navigate to the second page, and also this line of text will show on our second page. So let's see. I click this button. You'll see this is our onChanged method. Yeah, we get the user data in our second approach. And there is two approach we can use to get the user approach. But if you're using the first one, we can actually add some listener, and we can listen to some specific event. Right, so I highly recommend we're using this first approach because we can do more stuff with the first approach. Next two attribute I'm going to talk is this on editing complete attribute and on submitted attribute. And when you implement those two attributes, when you finish the typing, and you will see this done button on the bottom right. and those attribute only works on the iOS, so I'm not going to show in my Android emulator. So next one is this autofocus. When you set this attribute to true, by default when you navigate to that page, this text field will automatically focus. So let's try this attribute. Here I'm going to implement this autofocus attribute. So when I set to true, and by default this text field will be autofocused. So I need to restart so you can see the effect clear. So when you hit this restart button, you'll see by default this text field will be autofocused. Right? You see this keyboard will automatically pop up because I autofocus this text field. Another way to focus this text field is using this focused node. And this one is useful when you have a multiple text field. So when you finish one text field, you want the next text field auto-focused. So there is a best situation you can use this focused node. So I'm going to wrap this text field with a colon widget, and I just copy the same and paste in the next line. Right. So by default, when I set these two auto-focused, the second one actually didn't focus during this time, right? So I will also only focus on the first one. We can use the focus node to control the focus behavior in this text field. So outside of this build method, I'm going to declare two focus node. So I just call it focus node first, and I create another focus node, call it second. So I declare those two focus nodes, and here in order to implement this autofocus, I'm going to implement a focus node, and I pass our first in here. Right, so in our second text field, we also pass our second focus node. So in this onPressed button, so I'm going to comment out, and I want when I click this button, the second text field will be auto-focused. So we can manually control by using this focus scope of context and request focus. Right, so we set these to second, so which is the second focus node. So by saving these, you will see we have two text fields. None of those are focused. When I click this floating action button, I actually request the second text field to be focused. So when I click this button, you will see the second text field actually focused and have this cursor, and we can start to typing. Next one, we're going to talk about this keyboard type. You can actually set different type of keyboard you want. So back to Visual Studio Code, and inside our second text field, we can specify it is a text keyboard type, and we can parse a different type of keyboard. So first, we're going to try this number. So we just set this text input type to number. Alright, so we use the text input type this class, and this class implement lots of static attribute we can use. You see we have lots of attribute we can choose. Here I just choose this number, and I save. I click the second text field. You will see our keyboard will show the number only. And feel free to try those different attributes inside the text input type yourself. And let's back to today's agenda. Next one I'm going to talk is you can actually set this autocorrect attribute to true. So you will autocorrect your letter if you misspell. And also we have this text capitalization attribute. You can set the capitalization to even every characters or just the word. So let's try this attribute. So we're going to implement, so first we need to comment out this keyboard type. So for the capitalization, text capitalization, we can try test the capitalization. Usually you just move your mouse to this attribute. You'll see you actually need this class, and you can just borrow this class and using this dot to access it is a static attribute. So here I can choose these characters. So when I save, so every letter I type it will be capitalized. So I click the second text field. So I just type the hello world. You will see every letter I type will be capitalized. So you can also change to like to word, right? So you save, but you need to reload the application. So I type this hello world again. This time only the first letter will capitalized, right? So let's back to agenda. And next we're going to talk is this text align. So you can actually align the text you typed either by this center, start, or end, or justify. So we're going to try this attribute. So we're going to comment out this text capitalization, and we're going to set the text align. So we try this text line. Text align. So we try end. So let's save. You'll see our text will move to the end of the line. You can also try the center. Okay, so next attribute is this style. So you can actually style the text inside this text field, just the normal text we wrote. For example, you have this style attribute, so you can pass the text style, right? So inside this text style, we can change the color, the font color. For example, I just change it to red, right? We can change the color, and we can also change the font size, font weight, and font family as well. Next is these max lines. We can change how many lines allow us to input. So back to Visual Studio Code, we can set the max line. You will see we have two attributes. The first is a max length, and another one is these max lines. So we're going to set these to 4. And you will see our second text field will become much higher. And we can go to the next line and just to type hello world again, right? So we can actually input 4 lines of text. Next one is this obscure text, and we saw this many times if we trying to input our password, right? So here I'm going to comment now this max line, and I'm going to this obscure text to true. When I set to true, you are not going to see what kind of like a letter or number I put here. The text will become obscure. Okay, so next we're going to talk is this decoration. You can actually remove a text field underline by set these input decoration collapse. So back to Visual Studio Code, we have these decoration attribute. So we if we're using this input let's see, input decoration, input decoration, and this collapse. So first we're going to this one is required, so we must implement. So we're going to set this to parse4. So we save, you'll see our underline will gone. So we are not able to see this underline. Okay, let's comment out this one. And here we're going to use the normal input decoration. And inside this input decoration, we have a lot of attributes. So first we can set the hint text to parse4. So let's save, and we will bring our underline back. When I remove all of those input, you will see this parse4. So when I start typing, the parse4 will be disappear. So another text is this label text. So if you set this label text, and when I save, you'll see we have this label when you actually trying to type something. So here I'm going to comment out this hint text first. Okay, I just remove it. So I save, and you will see when I start to typing, this label text will on the left top. So when I finish the typing, so suppose I finish the typing, so this label will show on the start of our text field. When I start typing, you will move up to this corner. This is the label text. So it is the difference between hint text and label text. We can also set this helper text, the icon, prefix icon to this text field. So let's see, we're going to implement the icon. So icon, I will use the default material icon. I just need this add. So when I save, you will see we have this add icon before this text input. And if I use this prefix icon, so when I save, you will see this icon is inside this text field. So that is the differences between this prefix icon and icon. So the last one I want to mention in today's lesson is this border attribute inside this decoration. Sometimes we want to customize this text field a little bit, and there is a default outline input border we can use. So back to Visual Studio Code, and we can implement this border attribute by pass this outline input border. Outline input border. Alright, so we save, and we will have a border around this text field, and we can even customize it a little bit by set these different border size or border radius. We can make a round shape by set these border radius. We can use the border radius plus circular, and we can set to 20, and we will make these input a little round at the corner. Okay, I think that's all for today's lesson. Feel free to subscribe to my channel and open the notification so you won't miss out the latest Flutter tutorial. Also, if you can thumbs up my video, that would be really appreciated. Okay, thanks for watching. I will see you in next video.